Sec. You're live, Simon.
Hey, everybody. Simon Dixon here. Hope you have a very great holiday and a happy new year. I hope you've had a great one. It was an absolutely wild one. It's like the whole world changed in the time I gave my 2020 roundup and 2021 forecasts compared to where we are in January. So welcome, everybody. It's great to be back. I know some of you would have been in really compromised circumstance, but hopefully if you've been watching my YouTube channel, you were prepared for all of this and you were positioning yourself correctly. And if you watched the 4-part video series on retirement plan B, hope you enjoyed it, hope you implemented it, and hope you caught some of these trends that happened over the holiday period and throughout 2021. So let's wait for a few more of you to arrive for the live chat. As always, we're going to be doing an AMA. So first off, I'm going to try and catch up on a lot of the stuff that happened so that I can give you some insights on my thoughts, keep you up to date with what's going on. And then the second half, we'll take as many questions as we can. Azad is here. So if you can hear me okay, let me know in the live chat. Say hello. Let me know where you're tuning in from. And can't wait to get started. If you're watching the recording, then make sure you subscribe to the channel on YouTube and hit that like button and retweet it and share it so that we can have more people join us in these absolute turbulent times. As always, you are alive at one of the most interesting times in financial history. Some people are going to get really hurt. Some people are doing really well. And we want to make sure that you're on the right side of that change. So what's happened since we last went live? Well, firstly, the craziness in the US, the election has been more crazy than I could ever have imagined. As we said, I was preparing everybody for a Biden victory. The Biden victory happened, and we were discussing the impact that that has on the markets, the impact that has on the Federal Reserve. And I said it would drive the stock markets up to all-time highs as a result of the market being addicted to stimulus. And we're going to get that $1 trillion plus stimulus in the US as the US monetary system completely dilutes itself to shit. So that the value of your savings in US dollars becomes worth less and less and less, driving you into speculation and driving people into the stock market based upon the belief that there's nowhere else to go and the Federal Reserve betting on Federal Reserve stimulus. Obviously, the top 6 companies, we had Tesla join the S&P. As myself, a big fan, early Tesla owner, a big fan of Tesla, but valuations really being pumped based upon stimulus and the fact that the Federal Reserve has remained committed to making the rich richer and the poor poorer and driving wealth inequality by stimulating money into the asset market rather than allowing the real estate and property markets to correct themselves, become more affordable to the masses. They decided that they need to stimulate the wealthy further, keep the stock markets up, keep 401ks alive, keep everyone's pensions alive, keep assets high, so that those that don't and haven't accumulated assets can't get on the market, and driving more wealth inequality so that we see what we're seeing right now, which is record levels of social unrest. But what would happen during this election was really, really unpredictable in terms of what impact it can actually have. So the first thing to recognize is that I do believe that Bitcoin got a stimulus from 2 natural free market forces. One was corporations in a frenzy to protect their balance sheet from the US dollar as more and more institutions. I know this as a shareholder in many of the exchanges, Coinbase, Kraken, BitStamp, Bitfinex, many others. They're in a frenzy of onboarding, trying to onboard as many institutional clients, many corporate clients, as many retail clients, as many municipals. We even had the governor of Miami, who was at the conference that I spoke at just before the pandemic went into its lockdown phase. The beginning of last year, I speak in Miami, and he's talking about how he is open to holding some of their reserves for Miami in Bitcoin. So it's been a bit of a frenzy that's really driven demand, but also political turmoil. So we saw this last time, quite a few times in Bitcoin's history. The last time we saw something like this was the first WikiLeaks pumps in 2013. And that was when WikiLeaks was blockaded by the financial system. I covered this in my book. It was before 2013, actually. But I covered this in my book, Bank to the Future, Protect Your Future Before Governments Go Bust, which was the first published book in the world to cover Bitcoin, where it talked about how Bitcoin would come in demand when the world starts to realize that they need to own their own money, spend their own money, and have a force against the ever-increasing money supply that dilutes people's savings. And so what we're seeing now was a Bitcoin-led bull market, and Bitcoin always goes into bubbles and corrections. So if you're a short-term trader, you're going to get wrecked. You lose money at the 90% of traders lose money at the 10% insiders that manipulate markets. Bitcoin's no different from any other market in terms of manipulation. Every market's manipulated. And if you're a trader, you better be on the inside if you want to play that game. But investors and the long fundamentals prevail. And so what we started to see during the WikiLeaks situation was where Bank of America, Visa, MasterCard all said, although you're not doing anything illegal, for political reasons, we're going to blockade transactions and contributions towards WikiLeaks. That pumped the price of Bitcoin in one of its historical pumps, as people started to realize that censorship-resistant money is important. Now, what's really interesting is when Trump was president, his job was to defend the dollar. The power of America, the empire of America, is predicated on the fact that they have the world reserve currency, the dollar, that they negotiated out of the last Bretton Woods negotiation in 1944. And that is backed by the military bases that America has all around the world. Much like the previous world reserve currency was the pound, which was backed by the world's largest naval fleet and the British Empire. The American empire has been predicated based upon the fact that they've got the US dollar, and the US dollar has become, almost 80% of all international transactions, 50% of all currency being dollars, and the main currency outside of domestic currency held by central banks. And when the WikiLeaks was blockaded from taking transactions, it helps people understand the use case of Bitcoin. There was nothing illegal about what WikiLeaks does, but it's politics. I think we're going to see the same here with Trump's behavior driving the financial system and companies like Stripe to blockade contributions to political parties and to the different parties. And I think you start to see similar effects. Now, Trump, when he was president of the United States, which he still is today, but that's about to change, his job was to protect the dollar. But when he's no longer the president of the United States, he can say it as it is and how he thinks. And he's about to realize that Bitcoin was designed to help people transact when, for political reasons, you're being blockaded by the financial system through financial censorship. Nothing to do with crime or anti-money laundering, 100% politics. And so I think you're going to see Trump become a big supporter. He's lost his megaphone on Twitter, and we're starting to see the conversations now around censorship and the impact of freedom of speech. Well, that's also going to go into financial freedom of speech. So the US election is really driving the conversations around the importance of what I talked about many, many years back through hundreds of videos, through the books, that Bitcoin gives you the ability to own your own money, spend your own money, and it's a money supply that cannot change. And so therefore, people have to pay a higher price when the utility increases, and each year the utility tends to increase as more people realize it's not a Ponzi scheme, It's not a scam. It's not a just to get rich quick scheme. It's not just a currency just for drug dealers. So I think US political situation is really driving the demand. And ever with these short-term prices, the emotions of fear and greed kick in. People bought it just because they wanted to make a quick buck. Those are the weak hands, and they get driven out by the market manipulators, and the market manipulators are looking to accumulate as more and more institutions suck up more of the Bitcoin supply and hold them for the long term. And we enter a new dimension in terms of what Bitcoin market trends. So that's really the update of what we're seeing. I know many of you are going to ask me where you think the price is going to go. We can take some of those questions in the AMA section, but I'm never a short-term trader. Shout out to anyone that's currently in the Retirement Plan B program. Couple of reasons why I wasn't able to go live. Firstly, been really busy with the Retirement Plan B clients, getting them, building the portfolios and building my new Retirement Plan B and working with the clients. We had to stop at about 500 people because that's as many clients as we can handle. So shout out in the live chat. If you're there, let us know how you're enjoying it. Hope you're enjoying it. And I've been real busy with that. Secondly, we uploaded a video to YouTube, and it was my interview with Raoul Pal from Real Vision. And it got a little mark against it, and we weren't allowed to live stream. Really, given to us the importance. We love YouTube, obviously. The whole community is on YouTube, but we really need to start thinking about how we're going to protect ourselves from YouTube. We're now over 58,000 subscribers strong. If you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit the bell symbol. Please hit all, because the more subscribers that we have, the more we can get the message out there. But we've also got to start thinking about hedging. So in the comments section, if you've got ideas about different platforms that we should be on, it's about time that we start looking at those platforms, because this message is starting to really spread. Really grateful to the whole community that's helping us spread this message, as the number of subscribers has just really ballooned, which is just really grateful. Also, look out next week. I was interviewed on Robert Kiyosaki. Azad, who's moderating today, he managed to hook that up. Awesome work. Robert Kiyosaki, I read his book 15 years ago, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which was actually the book that many people may not know, but made me leave my career in investment banking to pursue my passion for monetary reform, which then led me to the Bitcoin community. So check that out. But yeah, we had a little blockade on the video, and we had to sort that one out. So last week we're unable to go live. What else has been happening? The SEC regulators, it was one of my trends that I talked about in the previous video when I did the 2020 roundup in 2021. I said expect a regulatory crackdown. Full disclosure, I am a shareholder in the company Ripple Labs through Bank to the Future. I do not own XRP tokens. The reason for that is because I believe that Swift does need disrupting, and Ripple Labs, the company, are creating interesting technology, doesn't necessarily need the token XRP, but because they own such a large supply of the token, I was expecting, challenges, because this is just what happens when you own a large portion of a cryptocurrency and a company, a centralized institution, issues it. And doesn't do it in compliance with securities laws. Therefore, the US, and especially being based in the US, you'd expect things like this. The reason I invested in Ripple Labs, the company, is for disruption in terms of the settlement layers in banking. I think it's an interesting financial technology play. And because they own 50 to 60% of the XRP cryptocurrency supply, if the cryptocurrency does well, they end up with a hugely valuable asset on the balance sheet, which is why for me it's equity. Everyone else would buy the token because they're short term, they're looking to play on those pumps and dumps. But if you're a long-term investor, again, long-terms are the ones that always tend to do well in these markets. But I do believe that, that we're going to see more like that. If those tokens were not sold in compliance with securities laws when they are issued by companies. This really drives the use case of why it's important with Bitcoin and Ethereum. The SEC has spoken out well, not the whole SEC, but one of the different people at the SEC has said that it's more sufficiently decentralized, which is why we're seeing a lot of the decentralized financial technology being built on Ethereum and people using Bitcoin as collateral, wrapping it into Ethereum. And we're getting this real great, perfect synergy where we're having the ability to own your own money, spend your own money, have a fixed supply that is then driving more demand. Then you can collateralize a portion of it in order to invest in some of these decentralized financial products. Highly risky, highly speculative, but yeah, that's what we're seeing at the moment. I do expect a regulatory crackdown as well in the decentralized financial space. And then I talked about in my 2021 trends and beyond, that a regulatory crackdown would drive the innovation further, and eventually you'll have this emergence of security tokens, decentralized financial products, and the XRP situation in a court suite with the SEC is only driving those trends. I'm going to take a quick water break. While I do that, please do like this video. Please do share this video and start to ask some of the questions in the comments section so that Azad can start to pick them out for the AMA section. And I'll finish off some of those final trends. A quick water break.
Yep, there's about 500 people joining us, so hit the like.
Brilliant, awesome, welcome. 500 people, that's great on the live show. If you'd like me to talk more about XRP and get a bit more into the details and SEC and that regulations type of stuff, got a lot of experience. We've been dealing with crypto securities ever since the beginning. Bank to the Future was the world's first crypto securities business, longest standing company in Bitcoin to survive as well. So we can do a bit deeper in that. If you'd like that as a topic, let us know. And we're also, with our retirement plan B clients at the moment, we're experimenting with different ways of upvoting questions and having questions more popular. If that experiment works well, it seems to be working quite well, then we'll try and integrate that into these live AMAs that we do each and every week as well. Also remember, if you didn't download your free copy of Bank to the Future, Protect Your Future Before Governments Go Bust, we decided to open source it, give it away completely free, because the publisher that receives all the funds every time he sells them has never paid us a royalty check. So we decided to give it away completely free. If you want a free copy of that book, download your copy, retirementplanb.com/book, and you can get your membership site and you can download a copy and have some free resources as well. So yeah, we created that for you. Very first book in the world that actually, the first published book in the world to cover Bitcoin. So much to cover, getting quite excited. What about banks banning Bitcoin? So HSBC, the bank that was actually the funder, if you look at the history of HSBC, it was created to fund the opium wars, to get China addicted to opium by British bankers pretending to be a Chinese bank in Hong Kong when they actually raided Hong Kong and took over Hong Kong from the last British Empire. So a beautiful, lovely history HSBC has. They've decided that they're not going to allow people to cash in on their Bitcoin returns because they want everyone to have money that goes down in value so that they can push you into the world's largest regulated debt-based Ponzi scheme, which is great because it's really bullish for Bitcoin, because that means that you need to either find a crypto-friendly bank, and we're working with our clients to help them with their crypto-friendly banking as part of their retirement solutions. And there are many crypto-friendly banks that are coming through right now that are happy now that they can custody Bitcoin as it gets more institutionalized as well. But HSBC, the same organization that got done for pushing a truck over the Mexican border with billions of dollars from the Mexican drug cartel, has decided that Bitcoin is too transparent and not a great currency for drug dealers. So therefore, they don't want it in their bank. They'd rather have that traditional fiat money in their bank so that they can continue to do money laundering through the world's largest regulated Ponzi scheme based upon their criminal enterprise and organization that they originally founded to get China addicted to opium when you look at the history of HSBC that leads us into the Hong Kong riots that we're experiencing today, because they were a big part of that taking Hong Kong from China in those opium wars. So anyway, they've decided that you can't cash in with Bitcoin through their bank, and so don't use HSBC. All the more reason to drive innovation. Is why we're seeing things like stable coins going into billions and billions. Full disclosure, I'm a shareholder in Bitfinex, which is the same management team that created Tether. That's going past $20 billion locked up there in stable coins. I'm a shareholder in Coinbase and Circle. They created the USDC stable coin. They're going past 4 billion, 5 billion next. This is driving demand for people to short-term hold some of their value in fiat currencies, and then long-term hold their value in Bitcoin and assets that have fixed money supply, are not diluted away through many of these political trends that we're experiencing right now. So don't concern yourself, find a new bank. There's plenty out there that are coming along. It used to be really, really hard. Things are getting easier. The industry is changing. What else have we got? Coinbase doing their IPO. So again, I don't have inside information, but I am a shareholder in Coinbase. Bank to the Future, there are investors that are shareholders in Coinbase, and also Robinhood. Both of those looking for their IPOs, really excited about seeing that. I think that the IPO and the way that Coinbase is looking to structure it is they're looking to do a direct listing, which is a new type of listing because they don't need money. They got Bitcoin. Bitcoin is their venture capitalist. Bitcoin is their treasury reserves. And so why would they need money from venture capital? They've raised several hundred million through that. I'm sure they hold some of that in Bitcoin. We got some of the allocation through Bank to the Future. Now they're looking to do their IPO, and we're starting to see the real multi-billion-dollar valuations. When they do their direct listing, it means that only people that buy it on the market can buy it. So it's not the institutional investors get their allocation and then they can dump those after a lock-in period into retail investors through the IPO. It's only the venture capitalists and the private equity people that have the private stock. But by doing that direct listing, I think this is going to be a frenzy of investment into institutional investors that are looking to get exposure to the largest company in the cryptocurrency sector. That's been around since 2011, I think they started. So congratulations to all the Bank to the Future investors that were shareholders in Coinbase. It's not a done deal yet, so we'll look to see where that happens. But also I noticed that there's some shifts in terms of the leadership team in the SEC. And I think we're going to see a lot more in terms of ETFs and products and custody solutions, security tokens. Some of our portfolio companies were also getting additional regulations and licenses to drive the innovation of the space further. The Robinhood IPO as well, another Bank to the Future portfolio company. So really great to see these IPOs coming through, because I think that's going to lead to a massive amount of mergers and acquisitions in the industry, and a lot more funding and a lot more ways to invest in the industry in those people that still hold their pension plans and their 401ks. Hopefully there's going to be more ways to get exposure for those that have been contributing to those as well. So those are most of the topics that I wanted to cover. Let's take as many questions as we can fit in before the AMA goes through. So I think we've got about 35 minutes where we can take as many questions as we can. So Azad, what have you got for us?
Okay, before the new year began, I guess there was one question we promised one person who tweeted. Let me get that question, which was, can you give us what your thoughts on SEC XRP allegations?
Already done. Next question.
Great. So in terms of some suggestions, we've got quite a few things like DLive, put your videos on Rumble, Theta TV, and which is a live streaming on the blockchain. So do you mind telling us which banks are crypto friendly? We're getting quite a few of those questions.
Yeah, unfortunately, any bank at the moment, they don't want to be known as crypto friendly, so they tend to service private clients and high net worth. But what we're doing at the moment is we're working on a solution for people that haven't reached high net worth investor status. A lot of investors are reaching that status, so then you can move over to private banking. But ordinary retail banks, any bank that directly clears into a central bank, they're not really servicing the industry right now. So you have to look a little bit greater out, and they don't really want to be known. So you have to normally get introductions. But we are working on solutions. Some of our a company that I'm investor in, Kraken, they're looking at how they've applied for a certain type of banking license, which they've made progress with at the moment, but it serves a niche customer. But again, we're putting together a service at the moment, a bank to the future in 2021, for those that are purchasing crypto through the platform, as we have our offering beyond our high net worth investors. So watch this space. Unfortunately, if any bank says they are crypto friendly, then they end up with all sorts of challenges that come from that. So you won't find those. Exactly like that. So you have to go through a bit of structures and things. That's something we're working on. So watch this space. We'll look forward to sharing more on that in 2021.
A lot of excitement with American politics, as you mentioned. Do you think Trump will go quietly or arrest all the politicians?
No, I don't think Trump will go quietly, but I'm really curious about what his next moves are. I always thought he was going to create maybe buy a TV station, create a TV station after this, try and build his own megaphone. But I do think that the amount of what he's going through right now, I think is going to drive him into the censorship resistant use cases. And so I think he's going to be and go through. And I do think that once Trump's the type of guy that if he's no longer president, he'll say, screw the dollar. And I think we're going to start to see some interesting things from him and how he intersects with the Bitcoin community. When he was president, he was always slamming Bitcoin and saying he's not a big fan and he think drug dealing happened through it. But now I think he's going to learn that this is not about a currency just for drug dealers. This is a currency that can prevent censorship resistance, but also has a blockchain, so it's a bad way of committing crime. So I think he's going to find something interesting there. So I'll be interesting to see what his next moves are, but I don't think he's going to go down. I do believe that we are witnessing the beginning of the end for the US empire. China has been empire building for a long time. They're making all the right moves. They got 5G out, which is the technology that's powering artificial intelligence, which is the technology that will power these central bank digital currencies that are going to be coming through. And I've covered in previous videos last year or many times how I think central bank digital currencies are going to be introduced. Also, China has been investing, diversifying away from their US dollar reserves. They own about $1.5 million of treasuries. So they are the US's biggest debtor. And they've been diversifying some of their US dollars away into hard assets like gold. And I do think that they will go through a Bitcoin accumulation phase at some stage if they're not doing already, but they've never even disclosed their full gold holdings. So don't expect them to disclose. But as more and more governments start to make these strategic plays as we enter into these digital currency wars, I think the US dollar is just going to become one of the basket of currencies as we enter into the monetary renegotiation phase that I talked about. And if you haven't watched the 4-part video series at retirementplanb.com, you can still head over there. We've left that up for you, and you can watch that video series to understand more about some of these currency wars that are due to come ahead. Anyone that's watched those videos, let us know in the comments what you thought of them for other people that may not have watched them yet. So looking forward to hearing your comments and feedback there. But don't expect Trump to walk away quietly. I think that he's going to be, he may even need to seek exile in Russia. He may be going down the Snowden route next because it seems like, the politics is looking to chuck him into prison if they can. And he's got to fight a bunch of legal battles that he deferred because of his presidency. He was able to defer those, and he's got to move those into the next phase. And I wouldn't be surprised if Trump, through his any relationships he built with Putin, will be going down the same route as Snowden, as the US, or the divided states of America tries to put him into prison. Who knows?
So are you prepared to get Trump on your show, Simon?
If Trump comes on the show, I think that would make a great episode of Bitcoin Hard Talk. So Azad, you set yourself a 2021 mission there. You got Kiyosaki, you got, and I think there's a few more that you could get there. But yeah, that would be very, very interesting to discuss on Bitcoin Hard Talk, see what his opinion of the dollars are after he's no longer president. I think that would be really interesting viewing. Who'd like to see that? Put a thumbs up and a like if you'd like to see Trump on Bitcoin Hard Talk. I think we're going to have to get a few more subscribers though. So please do hit that subscribe button so that we can start moving in that direction.
We'll make it happen. Okay. So, I'm sure everyone's aware of all these things that's happening with YouTube, just putting strikes on people's channels and making it difficult to get all of this out. And now with Trump going off on Twitter, and then everyone jumping off from Twitter and trying to get onto platforms like Parler, and now with Parler getting completely bamboozled by the likes of Amazon and stuff like that. So all of these centralized things, the question that we're seeing now is, should there be a distributed blockchain social media platform where nothing, including users, can be deleted or censored?
Should there? There are, but they're so hard to use. So the dark web's been around for a long time, which is the censorship-resistant version of the internet. And there's two sides to that. You have some horrific things that happen on the dark web, and you have privacy and freedom. So I believe in the yin and yang of life. I believe that we just have different trends, and they drive evil and they drive good, and human nature doesn't really change. So a blockchain platform moves us forward in the privacy. So as I said, two trends that are moving in different directions are centralized versus decentralized. Regulation crackdown on the centralized side drives innovation in the decentralized, and you have public blockchain currencies, central bank digital currencies, privacy versus artificial intelligence. These are the big trends. These are the big things. You know, with artificial intelligence, you have awesome user experiences and possibilities that were never possible before, but horrific surveillance like we've never seen before. You know, and so yin and yang, be careful what you ask for. All we have is trends. We have booms and busts. We have changes. All you need to do as an investor is adapt to these changes because they're inevitable, predictable, and guaranteed. But, you know, when you have a good, you always come with a bad as well. And you have the yin and yang with everything that we go forward. So just expect these changes, expect bad things to come from them, good things to happen. And you just need to get yourself and position yourself as an investor on the right side of these changes and trends. Should we have blockchain-based technology? I mean, blockchain does censorship resistance in money incredibly well. I'm an investor in a project called Rootstock RSK, which is about building smart contracts and more applications on top of the Bitcoin blockchain. Look forward to seeing some of these decentralized financial products built upon Bitcoin, but also the community at Ethereum are really, really making incredible progress in terms of I can't even keep up. My full-time job is to stay up to date with these trends, and I can't even keep up. So it's really amazing that we're starting to see this stuff, expect to see it. But again, whenever you know, there's lots of interesting stuff happening there. So watch this space. As always, we'll always be looking for investment opportunities for those that are building these interesting technologies.
Okay, we've got a lot of audience members here who are new to the whole crypto space, Bitcoin space, and we are getting questions that could typically get ignored. But let's not ignore this one.
Let's take some newbies ones, please.
Yeah, so who is Satoshi Nakamoto? Isn't it a bit awkward that no one knows who this person is? a thought that keeps coming up to in my mind is, could Bitcoin have been established by the deep states, the deep evil frontier? No offense.
Yeah, so Satoshi Nakamoto, no one knows who he is. People can speculate on who he is. There's people that claim to be him. There's people that claim they know who they are. There's people that say they don't know whether it's a man, a woman, a group of people, or an alien. And that is good. We don't want to know who Satoshi Nakamoto is because at this stage, it doesn't really matter. But in the early days, if Bitcoin was associated with a person, it would have got wiped out and taken out. Now it's so sufficiently decentralized and exists and is audited by tens of thousands of computers and exists and is now the world's largest supercomputer that the world has ever seen and is backed up on computers all around the world, making it virtually impossible to take down. And if you want to understand some of the ways in which the risks in terms of what those risks are. I created an episode during the Christmas period with Andreas Antonopoulos called Don't Buy Bitcoin, on all the reasons why people give not to buy Bitcoin. So check that one out if you didn't see it over the Christmas period. But the fact that we don't know who Satoshi is in the beginning is the only reason that Bitcoin got this far. Because all of the other iterations were connected with companies, individuals, entities, and they all got shut down. Thankfully, even if today we found out who Satoshi is, my personal hunch is that there's a group of people, and some of them have passed away. I gave previous videos on my early days when I went into a squat in Old Street in London with some of the very early Bitcoin developers. And when I spoke at the very first Bitcoin conference, the after party was a bunch of people wearing masks where you had to enter a secret code and knock on a door in a secret way in order to get into the hackathon. And it was one Mars bar, chocolate bar, cost you $1 in order to get in and get your entrance. But I've got, I told some of those interesting stories in the past. Check out previous videos if you're interested in the history. But was it created by the NSA or the deep state? Well, everything's open source code and it's regulated by maths and code. So it really doesn't matter who created it. And again, if you want to understand a bit more about that and the technology behind it, then check out that video with Andreas called Don't Buy Bitcoin. And we go through this very subject. But the reason people say it was created by the NSA is because they invented cryptography, and the technology and the cryptography used in Bitcoin has borrowed much of that open source code and best practices. For those of you that are more technical geeks, I don't go too technical. I'm a finance guy that had to learn the technology because that's the way the world's going. And so I got involved in the financial technology space. But yeah, that's the main reason why they say that. But it doesn't really matter because the technology exists. No one owns it. It's been audited by hundreds and thousands of people that play around with the code, that look at the code. And so if there was anything malicious in there, that's a topic we covered if you want to go a bit more technical in that side. But there is a pseudonymous element to it. So every transaction that is happens in Bitcoin happens on the blockchain, and that blockchain is public. They are trying, when they don't know your identity, but when you onboard and offboard, they can try and track those transactions. So there is an element to it. Lots and lots of innovation happening around privacy enhancements. There was lots of developments that in new features being introduced into the Bitcoin code at the moment, like Taproot, that really helps drive these optional privacy enhancing features and developments that can really help Bitcoin grow to the next level to serve different use cases. But you can have as many wallets as you want, and you don't have, it's not like a bank account where you have one wallet. But when you transact in those wallets, the history of those transactions is published, audited by all the miners, and that's what allows for this ability to transact peer-to-peer in a trustless environment, which was the real innovation of Bitcoin. Next question.
There's a lot of Trump questions there. Do you mind one more about Trump?
I'll give it a go.
All right. Trump is irrelevant now. People shouldn't be looking up to him as a business role model. What's your take on that?
I do think that we've got several layers of Trump relevancy to come. So I wouldn't rule him out at this stage in terms of irrelevancy, because I do believe that we are in a shifting fall of the US empire to the next superpower coming. And I do believe that there are monetary renegotiations to come through as we move into Bretton Woods 2 in the next few years. And so the US dollar, I believe, is going to be one of those basket currencies that backs this new central bank digital currency. And I do think that Trump is going to have a role to play in the future in terms of the political impact that he will still have. So I do believe that he's not going to walk away quietly. Maybe eventually he becomes irrelevant and he gets censored out of existence on certain platforms. But the divided states of America, half of the world loves him, half of the world hates him. And I do think that half of the world, if it enters into some kind of civil war over this, it may be the direction that Trump is looking to take this as he looks for the next stage in the divided states of America, as we shift into America looking more like a socialist state because of the Federal Reserve, because of the record levels of wealth inequality. And I do think that the half the world that loves him at the moment in America are looking to not walk away quietly. So that's my take on that subject. I could be wrong. What I do as an investor is I prepare for different eventualities: deflation, inflation, economic growth, economic decline, shift in world powers, and also the collapse of the banking system as the world's largest regulated Ponzi scheme, and position myself where I can sit on the side and speculate on politics, but whatever happens, make sure you're protecting yourself financially. And that's what we try to cover on this. And that's why I created that 4-part video series at retirementplanb.com to prepare for the Great Depression of the 2020s that I forecast in a video I uploaded to YouTube in 2011 from a 2009 presentation. Next question. Let's move on from Trump.
Yeah, another question from a newbie. How do we buy Bitcoin when our banks block all transfers?
So you buy Bitcoin through an exchange. The bank part of it is only when they block money coming in. And so exiting Bitcoin is challenging if you're using a traditional bank. So you need to use a better structure. Most people use like trust structures and private banking if you're high net worth. But there's lots of innovation with crypto-friendly banks coming through. But buying Bitcoin, you have several choices. Firstly, in order to onboard, in fact, you've just reminded me, we created an animation that we wanted to release on the different ways of onboarding into crypto. And in a previous video, I talked about the 4 or 5 different things you need to be aware of. But you can either do it through many of the companies that I'm a shareholder in, like companies like Coinbase or Kraken, which are exchanges, or Bitfinex. And you can make a bank wire across to their banks. You shouldn't have too much challenges with that. Then you can purchase cryptocurrency through those exchanges. A bank to the future, we're trying to drive some easier ways of doing that. We've been helping high net worth people do that. But in 2021, we're applying for additional services to help non-high net worth people on board into the industry, get the crypto-friendly banking sorted out. And those are our future products that we're looking to release and help. But it's when you're trying to sell some Bitcoin. But then here's what selling Bitcoin is either because you're a short-term speculator, in which case I wouldn't recommend getting involved in the industry as a short-term speculator. If you're a long-term investor, then you've got to ask yourself the question, selling Bitcoin means you're buying fiat currencies. Fiat currencies go down in value. My recommendations and what I talk about in the 4-part video series that everyone can get for free at retirementplanb.com is separate your spending money from your investing money. And if you're holding your investment money, the game is to get out of currency. Fiat currencies go down in value over time. And every single fiat currency gets destroyed and never survives. We've never had a fiat currency that has stood the test of time. and you're looking to get into money, money is a store of value. Gold, silver, traditional stores of value that maintain your wealth over time. And Bitcoin is more a speculative store of value, which over the 10 years that I've been involved in it, it's been the highest performing asset class for 10 of the last 12 years and has helped to increase wealth. But the speculators, the traders, they try and buy high and sell, they try and buy low and sell high. They end up buying high in FOMO, fear of missing out, and selling low in capitulation as they get manipulated by insiders. So that's why the game is investing, the game's not trading. And remember, every time you buy and sell, you create taxable events. As this industry's passed through $1 trillion more, where do you think the next tax grab is coming from governments? The next tax grab is the cryptocurrency industry, the industry that's moving from a few million to $1 trillion and beyond that we saw throughout the Christmas period. And governments, they really need to try and get their money. So every time you trade, you create taxable events. And you know, I don't want people doing that. There are ways to do it. There are ways of structuring it. There are ways of getting these things right. And we'll cover these in future episodes, surely. Next question.
What do you think the likely outcome of the SEC lawsuit against Ripple XRP is?
Likely outcome, I think that Ripple, the company, will settle, and they'll use this as an example to try and prevent other cryptocurrencies doing it. That's my perspective. Remember, I am biased as a shareholder in the company, but I think that it will lead to a settlement, and the SEC wants to make an example. I'm not terribly, you know, again, I don't own any XRP, so I'm not going to make short-term speculations on that. It's why I hold shares in the company, because I think the technology doesn't require XRP. And if they implement that technology, the company benefits. And if the cryptocurrency does well, then most of the XRP is held by the company. But my forecast is probably a settlement from the company and the SEC using this as an example for a regulatory crackdown. And then it drives innovation in the security token industry in the case of the United States, and drives innovation outside of the United States as you start to see a movement towards companies that do want to benefit from all the employment that gets created out of the growth of this technology, all the job opportunities, and especially as countries and municipals and central banks start accumulating Bitcoin on their balance sheet and making an announcement that they're using it as reserve currencies, they'll look to create friendly environments, which is why we saw today the European Union calling out that we need global regulations. We need to globally collaborate because we don't want one country taking advantage of the opportunity. We all need to collude. And the reason that they want to collude is because they want to figure out how to regulate Bitcoin, but to take it for what it is. It means regulating the financial institutions that transact and provide financial services. Bitcoin itself is unable to be regulated because you can't knock on Satoshi Nakamoto's door and say, please apply for a license.
I think we've got a few Peter Schiff fans in the room. So this one's going to be an appropriate question. Do you see a symbiotic relationship between Bitcoin and gold, i.e. will they both gain value, or will gold gain on Bitcoin if the central banks use gold as a reserve currency?
Absolutely. And by the way, I'm a Peter Schiff fan as well. I think he's created some awesome content, made some awesome predictions, but he has really held on to his belief about Bitcoin, which has really cost his investors an awful lot of money. So I'd love to chat with Peter Schiff. Do help me get Peter Schiff on Bitcoin Hard Talk. So far, he's been ignoring and hasn't and participated yet, but love to do that. Big fan of his content. But in terms of his Bitcoin content, I think he's costed investors a lot of money. And he's a dude that is committed to an opinion, and he's not open-minded. Remember the video that I created on financial IQ about always trying on? If you haven't watched it, check out my video on how to increase your financial IQ. Always trying on the opinions of people that you disagree with, rather than creating an echo chamber of people that agree with you. And remember, the truth normally happens somewhere in the middle. You can look at conspiracy theories and there's a lot to learn. You can look at traditional media, there's a lot to learn. The truth normally leads somewhere in the middle, and I try on different hats to do that. Relationship between Bitcoin and gold. Gold is a store of value, and it does what it does very well for over 5,000 years. It allows you to purchase the same amount of goods throughout your lifetime and maintain your purchasing power. Useless for generating wealth. It is a store of value and is not designed as a wealth creator. Bitcoin is a speculative store of value, which it means that one day it might act like gold, useless at increasing your wealth. It might maintain your purchasing power, but in the meantime, because the world doesn't know or expect or believe that it will be a store of value because they think it's a Ponzi scheme, a currency just for drug dealers, a get-rich-quick scheme, or a scam, therefore there is asymmetric returns as the world and demand for money that you can own, money that you can spend, and money that has a fixed money supply that can't change becomes more and more in demand, which we're experiencing right now. And so that asymmetric opportunity is what's making Bitcoin, and has been in the past. Can't give financial advice. The past doesn't equal the future, but every single year that I've been involved with it, 10 of the last 12, it's been the highest performing asset class, which is why I'm willing to build a pension around it. And I'm showing people live exactly how I'm investing in the retirement plan B program because of those reasons. So I do love gold for what it does. Just don't think that it's a wealth creator. I do love Bitcoin for what it does and speculating on whether it can actually become a world's first and best shot at us ever achieving digital, hard, sound money, which is the name of the game with Bitcoin. Next question.
By the way, I believe that Peter Schiff is watching you very, very carefully. So that watch that. Okay.
Yeah, well, Kiyosaki said that he doesn't like me when we did the interview. I think that's just simply the Bitcoin thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see how that goes.
We'll get him in the sack. So there's one thing that I've learned over the years in terms of the whole fintech side of things, where solutions are trying to be built around the unbanked. Now, there's an interesting question. How will the population without smartphones be banked?
Oh, great question. And I do believe that the war on cash is lost. Every country will get rid of cash. And we've already seen it in China when most of the cash entered into WeChat Pay. But these are really, really great questions and really, really interesting trends. And it's the only reason that some cash still exists in the world. Because if governments had their way, they totally want to eliminate all cash so they can track and trace everything. But the trend in the world is that most people do have smartphones. And I do believe that we are in a technology-led future. And I do believe that there will be great initiatives in the future to make sure that there is global penetration of smartphone and internet connectivity. There are lots of companies that want to achieve that goal. And guess what? Because of surveillance, artificial intelligence, and central bank digital currencies, they probably can use it as a freemium model whereby you get a free phone and internet connection as long as you opt into their free money and give away your freedom, rights, and liberties to get some of that central bank digital currency. So I think that we will move. One of the trends that I talked about in the book, Bank to the Future, Protect Your Future Before Governments Goes Bust, was the free economy, that you won't get consumer inflation because more and more things become free as we move to a technology-led industry. And therefore, you need the anti-version of that, which is public blockchains and Bitcoin and money that you can own and money you can spend globally digitally. And you have these two trends where you have asset price inflation as a result of the Federal Reserve driving wealth inequality by not letting assets decrease in value. And you had consumer deflation because consumer goods get cheaper and cheaper as we move more and more towards free, as we eventually drive from capitalism to socialism and from communism to socialism and meet in the middle in these controlled states and controlled political environments that globalism is driving us towards. And so I do believe that you will eventually have complete penetration of internet connectivity and smartphones as we move to a technology-driven environment, a war on cash where cash becomes illegal, and then you have financial inclusion in two ways. Financial inclusion in the complete surveillance, artificial intelligence-led central bank digital currencies, free helicopter money, universal basic incomes, free money for all, as they let banks go bust and the central bank becomes the issuer of the central bank digital currency. As governments start to merge their balance sheets, as we're seeing in the United States with the ex-Federal Reserve chiefs joining Treasury, and you see this mergence towards modern monetary theory. Bank to the Future talked about that, how you would see these trends a decade ago, and now this got a name called modern monetary theory. And so therefore they will penetrate, and then you have financial inclusion from Bitcoin, which is a financial system that exists outside the banking system, and technology that's driven in the decentralized environment. And you have the on-ramps and off-ramps, traditional fiat currencies, and you have ever more regulations and surveillance that happens there, and driving technological innovation in public blockchains. And Bitcoin becomes a regulator of the regulator. As these two trends come be. It creates better fiat currencies, but you just need to know what they're for. And it creates exits from the traditional financial system. And people just need to know which side of the fence they're going to sit on. And you will have on boards and off boards between the two worlds. That's the trends that I've been investing in for the last decade, which has served very well so far. And I think we're only just getting started. Next question. I think this will be the last one. This is my headed to the hour.
Yeah, this will be the last one. I guess a number of questions have come through regarding the retirement plan B. Those who missed the boat, they're hoping for there to be a next one coming soon, either this year or next year.
My full-time effort and our full-time effort now is in servicing the 500 people that registered for the Retirement Plan B program. We want to get full feedback from them. We want to make sure that they get the results that they signed up for, and then we can start to think about it. But what we have done is we've got the free video series, so you can review that. And there's a link on the final video where you can register your interest if you'd like to be, priority notified in the future for that. So you can just leave your name and email on that. I think the link is, well, either just watch the 4-part video series and there's a button to it. And I think it is retirementplanb.com/sign_up. If that's wrong, we'll make sure that we get the correct link in the description and share that as well. You can just enter your details there. But right now, we haven't thought beyond just making sure that I set up my personal retirement plan B using, investing live, so that the 500 people that registered can also look at how I'm doing it and plan theirs around. And we're just trying to service those customers. If you're in the community, if you're in the live chat right now, let people know what you think, and they can put their name down so that we can notify them. But again, our focus is just on making sure that those 500 people get the results that we want. The last thing we want is people registering for the retirement plan B and then not doing it and it having zero impact on their financial future. That's the last thing that we want. So we're doing everything we can for that. Azad, thank you for picking out those questions. I think we went completely around the world, from Trump to politics to XRP. Are you trying to squeeze in another question?
Just one final question, because
Okay.
this is it is the new year. I think people deserve it, and especially there was a strike on your account and everything, so people were looking forward to it. Anyway, this one final question, which I think is excellent. Who is your ultimate dream person that you want to interview on Bitcoin Hard Talk? I believe, I guess a few people are wanting to know what your experience was like with Robert Kiyosaki, but I think you've got bigger aspirations with bigger people as well. Yeah,
I think that's such a great question. Ray Dalio, very unfortunate. Very, very sad to hear. He over the Christmas period, unfortunately, his son passed away. So don't expect to hear from him. He's got big problems at the moment. My condolences go out to him. But I'd love to get Ray Dalio on the show, because he is not a believer in Bitcoin, and somebody I respect so much, and I've learned so much from in building my own investment philosophies. So I'd really love when the Ray Dalio family have recovered from their very sad, tragic loss over the holiday period. And he's ready to go out in the world. Love to have Ray Dalio on. Someone that has been a mentor of mine from the psychological side, nothing to do with the financial side, is Tony Robbins. I'd love to have Tony Robbins on the show. I think it would make really, really interesting viewing to have Trump on the show. I know some people will love him, some people will hate him, but it's the type of person we'd love to see on Bitcoin Hard Talk so that we can have discussions around those types of things. There's 3 great guests for you. Kiyosaki was, we'll get him on Bitcoin Hard Talk now. I've been on his show. I think that would be a great thing, but he's already a believer. So let me know who you would like to see. So tweet me at Simon Dixon Twit, and tweet whoever else is on Twitter that you would like to see on Bitcoin Hard Talk. But before we get these people, we're going to need your help. We're only 58,000 subscribers. We've been pushing out content throughout the whole of 2020. Unbelievably grateful for everyone that's subscribed, but we need to get to 1 million and beyond to have these people be interested. We're creating great content. We're making a big difference, but please do, if you enjoyed this, then let's get the YouTube algorithms making recommendations. Subscribe to it. Numbers help in getting these people so that we can create better content together. And please do share this across all your social networks with your family, with your friends that are interested in learning how to protect themselves, build and protect their wealth. So always remember, I'm not going to take another question. You are alive at one of the most interesting and exciting times in financial history. I'm going to keep creating these videos each week for as long as YouTube lets us. We'll try and look at alternatives as well. But I want to make sure that you're on the right side of that change. Some people are going to get hurt. Others are going to have truly life-changing experiences. And I want you to be on the right side of that change. Peace.